one. You are live, you are live.
Welcome. We've got two zebra stallions roaring after each other in a big fight. I'm going to try and catch up with them. Oh, they're going back that way. And they've been kicking and bucking and chasing each other. They're about to go past us. Oh, there's blood all over the one. I'm just going to try and get us in the right spot. This is a very serious zebra stallion fight. My name is Brendio Smith and welcome to Safari Live. And just see the dust disappearing in front of us from them. I'm going to try and figure out where they come out. And we might head back to where we saw the rest of the herd. But there's blood pouring out of the one zebra's shoulder. This is a very serious zebra fight. There they disappeared too. I've got Andrew Francis on camera with me. We have James Henry and Brian Joubert on the other vehicle. And we have Lou and Tara in final control. We've been trying to keep up with them. They've been roaring down the side of the road. I think what we'll do is we'll try and get back towards where we saw the herd. It should loop back towards there. And zebras can be extraordinarily violent animals. And often the wounds and scars you see on them are not caused by lions, which a lot of people think. They're caused by other zebras.
Yeah, they come on the right.
Yeah, they come on the right. Well spotted, Andrew. So the one in front, on his right side, has got a big bloody wound on his shoulder. Obviously keeping up with them can be quite a challenge. And there's the rest of the herd, the females, just waiting to see who is the victor. Obviously everyone's a little bit jumpy in this cold, windy morning. Oh, there's the dust of the stallions further down the road. And judging from where they're looking, the stallions are in here somewhere. Now I've seen zebra stallions fight for up to 2 hours in the Makgadikgadi salt pans of Botswana. Literally, they could pop up anywhere. So Andrew, keep your eyes open. I'm going to try to listen for the pounding hooves. Yeah, that do-do. It sounds like they might be coming back towards us. We're just gonna wait here. I know it's a bit difficult for you guys, but I can actually hear their hooves. Do-do, 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 do-do. Here we go, Andrew. Just ran across in front of us and at high speed. Now, when the loser, which it looks like at the moment is the forerunner, the one running in front, gets tired, that other stallion will press home his advantage. Okay. Looks like they crossed the road.
Any updates?
So unfortunately we're still on handhelds here. Andrew's got some audio behind us. No updates, Craig?
Morning, Brent. Thank you.
Here we go. Is that the one with the... They're getting tired now. have a look. We can have a look at that bite wound on its shoulder. This one, there we go. You can see the blood on its side. And there we go. That looks, it could be from a kick, but I think that looks like a bite. It's actually got blood on both front legs. And here comes the other, but they are getting a bit tired. I think this has probably been going on for quite a while already. Oh, there we go. And even the one who's doing the chasing at the moment, he's got some blood up on his back, also looks like from a bite. Oh, this way. So I'm just trying to get up there. But they are moving at a rate of knots. Hold on, Andrew. Where did they go? I just saw them here a brief second ago. And they're keeping us going and going in circles. They are brutal, which Paul Rizzo has noted. They can be very, very brutal. Is that the rest of the herd there? They're the two stallions on the left. You can see the blood. That's the one. See them just disappearing. I'm going to wait here, see if they run out into the open. I mean, it's difficult enough following them on this open fire break. We're not going to be able to follow them inside that thicket. And Country Girl Ash says, are they fighting over mares? Most definitely. So, zebra social hierarchy is relatively simple. They're not territorial, but they will defend their harem, which is what the social structure is called. So it'll be a stallion and a harem. He will defend a small group of females, and the competition for these harems is very, very fierce. Seems like it's calmed down now. I think they're quite tired. They've probably been going at it for a while. So while we're watching there, it did look like the one doing the chasing was a bit smaller, and GJ from Southern California noted that. I do, and GJ, one must remember, it's not always the size that's important, and we can see that in lions and leopards as well. It's quite often the aggression. And of course, size does help, but quite often it's the attitude that'll get you the girls. And one could say that's quite true for human beings as well. So it looks like it's all calmed down now, but what a really exciting way to start the sunrise safari. It might be grey, but it's never dull. And remember, guys, if you have any questions, you can whack them through to us on #SafariLive on Twitter, or you can use the email address questions@wildearth.tv. So before we had these zebras racing around chasing each other, our plan was this morning to head along our northern boundary, and fingers crossed some lions might cross. We're looking for tracks of lions, and then we're going to head down towards the eastern boundary, and maybe one of those Birminghams who's mating with the Styx lionesses come further enough west that we can find them. I know James is headed off to the opposite side of the property, and he's looking for those leopards from last night. But all's calm here. It seems like it would be really fascinating to know, and obviously we can't really know for sure whether the winner of this zebra duel was the challenger or the male that already held the harem. So we are returning to our original plan now, back onto our northern boundary, and the lion news from north of the boundary is that, as far as I know, the Nkuhumas are still eating that giraffe they managed to catch, and once the other guys get going a bit later, I will find out how much meat is possibly left on that giraffe, so when we can expect Nkuhumas to start moving. And as I said, the Salalas looked like they're headed back towards their more traditional home range to the south west of us, back down towards the Sand River. And you can see it was quite a challenge to keep up with them. We were flying down the road, and Angie said, she says, wow, I knew zebras were fast, but I didn't know they were that fast. Well, when you got to keep out of the lion's jaws, it helps to have a good turn of speed. But the one thing a zebra doesn't have is stamina. It's always good to test the cameraman early in the morning, get them moving that tripod. Gonna wake them up a bit, especially Andrew. So I am going down into quite a steep dip here, and occasionally we do have a bit of signal issue in these dips. Bear with me, I'll just move quickly through it. I even said to Andrew before we went live today, I got a feeling we're going to see some really good stuff today. And so far those feelings have worked out quite well in the but we've started off with a bang. I've got to just bring that excitement level. Remember to check for tracks, so we're going to go a little bit slower again. I'm going to check all the major game paths that cross this northern boundary. So, zebra fights are really, really violent. And Emily Moon's wondering, do they ever fight to the death? They can do, Emily, but generally it's unusual. More often than not, the vanquished will move away rather than get to that stage. And because they don't have that much stamina, when the fight sort of peters out, they will let the vanquished leave, but they quite often will push home their advantage, really beating them on the ground if they get that opportunity. But the other risk, and why one of the main reasons they let the vanquished leave and those fights seldom go all the way to the death, is because while you're off chasing someone off away from your harem, someone else can sneak in there and steal it. And obviously you are now very fatigued and you've got to come back and there's a new stallion lording over the females. Not such a big problem in this area at the moment, but in areas like the Masai Mara and central Botswana, where the elephants travel in groups of hundreds, it's very easy for a stallion to nip in. So even within those really large groups and migrations, there will be stallions defending up to sort of 10 or 15 individual females. within those groups. Very, very fascinating. And just a quick thank you to Kevin, who was listening to the Djuma cam last night. So there was quite a lot of hyena action between about 12 and 3, I think. It was 12 and 3. But also lions calling in the distance around 1. Well, Kevin, hopefully these lions are somewhere on Djuma and we're going to be able to find them. Sitting on the board. Fallen into the vehicle. And as I said, it's quite a cool morning, but it looks like there is a bit of cloud coming through. I mean, a bit of blue sky breaking through. And it's 19 degrees Celsius, 66 Fahrenheit. And for those of you who still follow the Kelvin, it's 292 Kelvin and 6.27 Newton. So Jill thinks Andrew was trying to eat his breakfast while we were chasing the zebra and was struggling. Well, I can tell you now he's now covered in milk and cereal. No, I'm only joking. He wasn't eating his breakfast. He did have his breakfast bar before we departed this morning. Double checking for tracks there. So if a Challenger took over that harem and managed to oust decided to stop talking. This crested Franklin were calling to their heart's content, being very loud next to the road. Oh, there's a little bit of an... There we go. Very distinct part of the dawn chorus, the crested Franklins. Noisy little blighters. There, off they went. And off they call again behind the termite mound. So, sorry Lisa, back to your question. Sometimes, not all the time, but it does happen occasionally where a new stallion will kill the foals. Especially if they're younger foals, but it doesn't happen every time. Come on, lion tracks, or leopard tracks, or cheetah tracks, or wild dog tracks. I think we should just have a general come on tracks. Okay, here we go. Andrew caught. Oh, I think it's quite a nice little flowering plant that is. Do you want to go forward a bit? Is that okay? Which has just made an appearance, and it's quite a tall plant. And it is called the tall white squill. And as plants go, we'll show you how tall it is. The one nice thing about having the handheld is I'm in constant communication even when I'm off the vehicle. There we go. A tall white squill, probably about James's height. What do you think, Andrew? Yes, maybe. maybe a bit taller. Oh, can you get this here? You got it?
Yes.
You see the green on his face?
Pushing it.
Pushing it. Let me move the car a bit closer. So literally there's a longhorn beetle that's feeding off that the pollen in that tall white squirrel, and his whole front end is covered in the pollen. So let's see if we can show you that by getting a little bit closer. How's that, Andrew? A little bit closer. Obviously I don't want to disturb this beetle while he's having his breakfast. There we go. A little bit lower. There we go. You can see that greenish tinge around his front, and that's all the pollen he's collecting from this plant. And as it warms up, it's a bit cool and at the moment, so there's not that many insects around just yet. And a lot of different insects will utilize this plant. Wasps, one of them bees, butterflies, but there is another squirrel that looks very, very similar to this one, and that one can be quite dangerous because this one is a well-known medicinal plant, and the other, as well as being a medicinal plant, it's also quite dangerous. The seeds have a highly, highly strong hallucinogen in them.
Ooh.
and it's very, very noxious. So apart from that, it can in overdoses be very detrimental towards your well-being. I'm just trying to remember the name of the toxin now. I'm just having a quick look in my book while Andrew is showing you the squirrel. And it's very, very important when dealing with medicinal plants to actually know the difference between the two. Okay, well, I will find out that for you a little bit later, but while we do our homework in our books, we're going to send you back, we're going to send you across to, so James can say good morning, and we'll be back with you a little later.
Good morning everyone. I greet you with an elephant. A beautiful, enormous elephant bull, marvelously framed there by a telegraph pole. Now, while you look at that elephant, you are most welcome, of course. Brent has given you all the important introductions. You know why you're here, you know what you're doing here. My name is James Hendry. On camera is Brian Joubert. Say hello, Brian.
Hello.
There we go. The thumb. And that is a huge elephant bull. Now, we have come into this area, we've bumped into this elephant purely by chance. We have found tracks of the mating leopards that we saw last night, and they have mercifully headed out of Arathusa, which is the reserve to the west of us. We're on that boundary road now, and they've gone into Djuma. So we're going to head around on the road and see if we can't follow up on the tracks, see if we can find them on the Djuma side. That elephant bull is rather magnificent, but he's also in some very thick bush. So we're probably not going to go chasing in there after him. It might incur his wrath, and we don't really want to do that, do we? And as I'm sure Brent has told you, we are on a live safari, hashtag Safari Live, if you want to talk to us on the tweet. Otherwise, feel free to send us an email, questions@WildEarthTV. Carrier pigeons, not particularly useful in this area. Too many birds of prey, they'll probably be eaten on their way in. Right, well, we'll just sit here for a little bit longer while he's being quite confiding. You can see he's got enormous tusks. Tusks, of course, forming part of the top of this, or the incisor teeth, and they come straight out of the top of the skull. Those are pretty big ones for this particular area. There aren't many big tuskers left. And while we're looking at him, people are often extremely attached to the very obvious emotion that elephants show. And Lynn, in Western Canada, you've obviously seen some footage of elephants playing with the bones of the dead. And certainly there's a lot of thought that this is a case of mourning. So we absolutely do seem to see that with elephants. And I remember once we had a dead elephant at a place called Ngala, and for many nights a whole herd would come up to where the carcass was, and they'd stand around in dead silence for at least an hour before moving off. And they did that for about 3 or 4 nights in a row, and it was a very sort of humbling, I suppose, experience. And it was also an experience that gave you an impression that there were absolutely some kind of emotion flowing through the herd. We can't define what that is, of course, we don't know, but of course we are very tempted out here to anthropomorphize the animals that we see, and so we'll probably put it down to some kind of sorrow, and I think that that's the most accurate way of putting it. So Lynn, it's very common. You absolutely do see elephants mourning their dead by picking up the bones. They will make those either deep infrasonic rumbles while they're doing it, and they might even shout. They'll put the bones on their heads and then drop them on the ground. He's a magnificent fellow, this, he really is. He's chewing slowly away. I'd put him at roughly 35 years old. So he's a bull in his prime. You can probably also hear the ring-necked dove calling just to the side. Right, I think let us... Oh, there he is. Well done.
Brent, coming, Brent.
Right, we're going to carry on and see if we can't pick up these leopard tracks.
Brent,
see if we don't have some luck.
From Roy from Safari, straight across Ghana and shadow crossing east into Oyatela near Linwood Drive.
Marvellous. Just going to quickly get hold of Craig on the radio. We're in the new vehicle, of course. Couple of technical issues we need to work on. Ideally we want this coming into my ear so that you don't have to listen to it, but we will definitely have to talk every so often on the radio, I'm afraid.
Brent, I think I've got trucks heading south from Vessel towards the double M.
Of course, many people feel that the radio is a free cell phone service where there is no bill attached to how long you speak. This is of course a mistake, and one should speak as little as humanly possible on the radio to avoid traffic. Right, we're now at the far southwestern corner of Djuma. We're going to head in that way and see if we can't find any tracks. With any luck, the leopard will just be walking about the road. I am following up on those Tingana and Shadow tracks. They cross halfway between the Red Dam Road and Zebra Drive. I'll follow up from Djuma side. Edward, yes, it is indeed Tingana again. Negative, nowhere near there. I was sorry, couldn't I cross into... Just go again with that update. I had Roy with me at the junction, Zebra Drive and Red Dam Road, and we both have the track going into Buatela. Confirm they cross out of Buatela at Leadwood Drive. Just some confusing messages there on the radio. We're on track.
Break. Hang on.
Right. We are in the right, definitely in the right place. And Edward, you say, is it Tingana again? Edward, it is Tingana again. He is having to, steel himself for all the ladies that are attracting his attention and basically harassing him. And to watch, oh dear. We watched them last night, of course, and Shadow was extremely, well, she was very definite about what she wanted, and he was not really quite so definite about giving it to her. We watched them walking along the road. It was very funny to watch, and he was trying to mark his territory, concentrate on doing his job, and she'd lie in front of him and growl and flick her tail in his face and then sort of back into him, and he'd step around her patiently, carry on with his way, try and mark his territory, and this happened 10 or 12 times as they walked along the road. Very funny to watch. Now this is round about the area that we think they've come into, so we just have to be very careful while we're watching the road and see that the tracks don't cross. There's not much irritates other guides in the area more, flies everywhere, than if you drive over the tracks rather than spot them. I've done this myself, of course, by mistake. Leopard, of course, don't weigh very much, and so you need to be quite careful if you're on hard ground. There is a great plethora of flies. Can you see them on the screen there? So we'll drive very slowly up this road. So they were coming basically from where I'm pointing there. That's where the tracks headed into Buatela or Djuma. You can see a fairly leaden sky. It's actually quite nice this time of year. Don't think it's going to rain. I think we may get a little bit of spittle a bit later, but not much in the way of great cyclonic thunderstorms. It's unlikely to happen. And I'm told that the weather report says there is a chance of showers at 7 a.m. The nearest sort of weather station though is about probably 20 or 30 kilometers away. So, and the weather here is very localized. So it may rain there, it may then follow to here, it may not. Who knows? So we don't have a predictor weather station here, no meteorological office, other than those provided by the traditional methods of checking whether it's going to rain, which seem to be about as accurate as throwing a dice, really. Brian, you will tell me if you see two mating leopards, won't you?
Maybe.
Okay, thanks. I do get myself into trouble every so often by casting aspersions on the characters of our leopards here. And Ellen, you make a very good point. that while I have described Shadow as harassing Tingana, she's doing precisely what any leopardess in estrus would do. There's nothing unusual about what we're watching. I'm not sure, however, that Tingana is necessarily behaving completely normally. It may well be that he's just a little bit tired after the exertions of having mated with Karula. Ooh, here we go. Here are the tracks on the road. It may just be that he's a bit exhausted after the exertions of mating with Karula for many days. Sorry, I'm going to be not looking at the screen camera for now, just checking where these tracks go. They definitely go onto the road in front of us. So as Ellen says, Shadow is definitely not being anything other than a totally normal leopard. So here are his tracks. I don't see hers anywhere. He was probably carrying on his territorial marking. And it was actually really hilarious because she disappeared into the bush, and then he sensed her coming out while he was marking his territory, and he stopped. The tracks are still on the road. And he stopped and he saw her, and he hunkered down onto the road and put his ears flat back, and she looked around desperately and she spotted him, and you could see as he saw her, he kind of lifted his head and looked around like this and put his ears back and grunted, and she came trotting over, and he could not have been less impressed by seeing her. She was completely undeterred by this, of course. I don't see the tracks anymore. We'll just drive a little bit further along. Leopards often weave up and down. Have you got some there? So Brian had some on the left-hand side there. Let's just check in all the trees in case they haven't made a kill. Any termite mounds. Large bird over there. It's definitely not a leopard. We'll go as far as that before we turn around and come back and see if the tracks don't go somewhere else. Just going to pull that in on the radio. Tracks of Tingana come onto Zoe's road, or sorry, Rebecca's road, and head north, and then I'm not sure, I'm going to follow from here. Got to drive very slowly, and it's always a bit of a toss-up as to how fast you should go, because they do move, of course, but at night they move. Normally during the day they'll go still. Now, while we were looking for leopards and waiting to get into the sighting yesterday afternoon, I had to do a couple of running repairs on the front of the vehicle with some duct tape in order to stop the rattling from the jack. And Larry in Danville, you said it looks like somebody's fixed it proper. Larry, they have not. My fixing is as it was yesterday evening. There it is. You can see the duct tape is firmly in place and doing its job admirably. Thank you, Larry, for pointing out my amazing DIY skills. As I said yesterday, so as I was saying yesterday, there's a wonderful law called the law of the instrument, and that law states that if the only tool you have is a hammer, then all problems will tend to look like nails. Now, this is much the same with duct tape. If the only tool you have is duct tape, all problems will look like they can be fixed by duct tape, and indeed it would seem that they can. And then On the subject of the car, of this mighty vehicle that we're driving around the place, while we're looking for leopards, I'll just tell you a little bit about it. Question from Washington about what it is, I mean, how customized the vehicles are. This is a standard issue 90. So, this is from Lyle in Washington. This is a standard issue 90, and that means it's a 90-inch chassis. Land Rover 90, and basically with the Land Rover it's quite nice. I mean, this one nice feature of them is that you don't need to cut the roof off, you can just basically bolt it off. So it's a standard issue 90 pickup with the roof bolted off, and then there are some modifications that are made post-delivery. We've attached a sort of large center console for the camera to sit on, a couple of benches, which are not particularly comfortable for Brian to sit on. Brian adds a pillow to that so that his bottom doesn't become sore during the driving around the place. This thing, this kind of khaki dashboard top is quite new. But otherwise, pretty standard, you know, there's not a huge amount of difference. All the technical equipment is new, but there are no major modifications. That's the nice thing about the Land Rover, like I say, you can pull off the roof, you don't need to cut it off. Our Land Rover swears blind that they are not going to make the Defender anymore, that they've come to an end. I think it's a marketing ploy myself. I think you'll find that they will eventually re-emerge. It is probably not sort of the great sadness that the design has been retired. It hasn't been modified since roughly 1754. What is that? The really nice thing for us at Wild Earth.
Some of the glow on Tuesday's driveway.
It's the stick. So the nice thing about this little car is that it's short wheelbase, and so it's really good off-road. It's much less cumbersome than the long wheelbases that a lot of the other guys out here have to drive when they're driving with guests. So we can go lots of places that other people can't, which is ideal for filming purposes. Right, the tracks disappeared off the road somewhere around here. What we did notice yesterday was that Tingana was limping along. He's very clearly sore on his left fourth paw, and we don't really know how that happened. Glenn in Idaho, you were clearly watching last night, so thank you for your time. And a good question, do I have any further thoughts on it? I didn't lose a huge amount of sleep over it, I have to admit, because the rest of the sighting just astonished me so much, so I kind of forgot about it. But Glenn, I think you'll find that it's one of two things. He was hunting a buffalo a little while back with Karula. I think that could have injured it. I think also that you've seen how aggressive the mating is. You've seen that as he climbs off her, she turns around and she'll take a swat at him. And I wouldn't be surprised if a claw has caught him, perhaps in the foot, and maybe that's what's injured him. There was some talk about maybe it being an injury from a fight with another male leopard. I really don't think that's the case. I think that much more likely have hurt his head. You know, that's where they fight. They go for the neck. There'd be some other kind of injury if there'd been a physical fight. And leopards will avoid physical confrontation as much as they possibly can, because if they do get injured, it's obviously extremely dangerous for them, because they don't live in a pride, they don't live in a group. So if they get injured, that's normally it. So they need to be very careful. And I'm hoping fervently, as I'm sure are all of you, that his injury is not serious. Many of you will now have seen leopards mating, and it is a quite astonishing performance that goes on for many days, up to 10 times an hour sometimes. And Jeffrey in Austin, Texas, you ask a brilliantly valid question: how many of those actual copulations are actually, you know, have a sperm deposit involved? Jeffrey, most of them actually. I don't think that they produce enormous volumes of ejaculant. I'm sure it kind of tapers off towards the end of the mating period, but all of them will produce something. Okay, here was where the last tracks were. I don't know where they go. I'm just going to wonder if we can't hand over to Brent quickly while I look around for the tracks. We might be able to do that. Oh, they're over here, the tracks. Just have a quick listen and see if we can't hear them. They're very noisy when they mate, of course. There's a lot of growling and shouting. So I can't hear anything there. I can hear an African cuckoo calling. Boop, 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 boop. But nothing in the way of leopards. Okay, we'll go around onto the next road there. See if we can't pick up other tracks. I think they've probably gone into this block now. So just keep an eye in here. They might be under a bushel somewhere, or maybe they're sharing a kill. That's the other thing that does happen, of course, is that this is the one time when leopards tend to hunt in a slightly communal fashion, and that's why Karula and Tingana managed to take out and eat for themselves a small buffalo the other day. Otherwise, normally too big a prey. And I'm sure he did most of the bulk of the killing with that, but she would definitely have helped him. And, well, we just wonder if the same thing won't happen here. Ooh, lion tracks. Well, we're going to head across to Brent quickly. I suspect he's following some lion tracks. Just listening to him. Alright, we're going to head across to Brent. He's going to give you an update. He's definitely following something quite exciting. I will just have a look at these tracks and we'll keep you posted. It's all going on. It's all rather confusing. Check in with Brent and I'll see you just now.
I told you, I had a feeling this morning, and we're going to be going really, really slowly, checking really carefully. I found the tracks of a single male cheetah coming into Djuma, as well as the tracks of a male leopard. But we're going to leave the male leopard tracks. I know James is tracking other leopards, and we're going to see if we can find where these cheetah tracks come out of this block. So we're going to be going at snail's pace. I don't want to miss the tracks in this bad light. So the tracks went off the road in this general area here, and those of you who have followed cheetah with us before will know that they don't really like using the roads, and they do that to avoid the other predators. So they don't like using big game paths or roads because leopards, lions and hyenas like using big game paths and roads. I'm just going to check a little bit through here, but if this cheetah's gone through the bush, it's going to be near impossible to track while on the vehicle. But we've got to think like an animal, and if I was a cheetah in the general direction it's heading, I think we're going to go check Buffalo's waterhole. I think there's a good chance it's heading almost directly towards there, but going through the bush, not along the roads. So we're pretty much opposite where those tracks went off, but I still think he's going to be heading further north. But we'll just double check, rather make sure. While I'm got my head glued to the ground, Andrew is scanning around us, hoping to spot that cheetah or that leopard. Very exciting. Tracks of mating leopards, tracks of a cheetah. Craig, Gonzo the single Shikankanka, west of Cheetah Cut line towards Drakensberg Central Junction. I'm busy checking the area.
Alright, copy. I'll keep my eyes on Condemned Road.
So we've got some kudu over there, very relaxed, munching away, and kudu have got incredibly good eyesight at spotting predators. So I think we're just going to check the soft sand up ahead here, and then we're going to turn around and head towards the Buffalo's waterhole. Siberia is zooming, and she's wondering, are we close to the Djuma waterhole cam so she can keep an eye out too? Unfortunately not, Siberia. We're well on the eastern side of Djuma, quite far from the camp. Very, very, very unusual track I'm trying to figure out here. Very strange. See that the ground's been flattened here. First thought it was an elephant, but it's not. It's a very big python, incredibly big snake. Very unusual track. See, it's actually laying and gone across there, but it's actually been resting here during the night. Quite often, if you just check very carefully, sometimes you find them very close by. Now, if I was a python, I'd go sleep in there. Nope. Might have moved a bit further, but it's always worth checking where you find these big python tracks very close by. But I guess that particular one, just judging from that track, is a good at least 3 meters long. So not sure how long that is in feet, but I think it's about 8-9 foot, maybe a 9-foot snake, maybe a bit. I think maybe it's even a bit more, maybe even 12 foot. So I'm going to go on my instincts now, because cheetah don't like to walk down the roads. I think it's going through the bush parallel to the road, and more than likely it's going to head towards the Buffalo's Hook waterhole. Andrew, keep your eyes open. There's 2 spotted cats in this area at the moment.
Break useful on those ones.
Oh, okay, just got touch cake. Okay, last trap goes into the block between Drakensberg and Cheetah Cut Line in central. General direction northwest. I'm going to check Drakensberg through to around Buffalo's Hook or Gori Pan. I think that's the general direction of the track.
Okay, copy. Just coming to Pangolin Track Junction, turn down for moving this side.
Copy. There's also tracks of a single inway coming down on central towards Drakensberg. If I have no luck with the Shikakanka, I'll come back to those.
Alright, copy.
And he would have just crossed here somewhere. So again, we're going to be checking really, really carefully. And also listening, hoping that monkeys or kudu or impala, nyala spot this animal. So Paul Rizzo is being quite funny this morning. He says, well, number 1 survival rule out in the African bush is don't walk down a trail or a path or a road. Well, if you're a cheetah, it's a very good survival rule. And Mike says he remembers seeing 2 male cheetah a couple of months ago on drive. I think this could be one of those 2. And how close we got to them. We had such a special time with them. That we spent, I think, 2 full drives with those male cheetah before they crossed north. And male cheetah have vast home ranges, so they move through an area and they can walk vast distances very quickly. So ideally, if we want to see cheetah regularly, we got to hope for a female with cubs, and then they're more sedimentary for a while. But cheetah are fascinating species. It is one of the only animals or mammals that needs a male bias sexual ratio for mating. So you need to have more males than females, and female cheetah will often pass up on 3 or 4 coalitions of males before deciding to mate. And they are quite nomadic as well, both male and female. And they have home ranges, but they're very large and very loosely set. Places like the Masai Mara, obviously they're much smaller, and that's due to food availability and terrain. And there's a big misconception that cheetah need wide open plains to be successful. Mixed woodland like this is actually very good cheetah country. Just they're much easier to spot in wide open plains. And the largest meta population of cheetah, meta population is sort of the population that holds the most genetic variation and most numbers, is actually the Greater Kruger National Park. Not what we would expect, the Masai Mara or Kalahari Desert. On the reserve where my parents live, we have a coalition of 2 male cheetah that we see quite regularly, and over the last 4 years or so I've spent a lot of time with them on foot, and the fact so now they're so habituated, and these are completely wild cheetah that have never been they haven't been hand reared, they're not from a petting zoo. I can sit about 4 meters away from them on the ground. I've actually walked with them while they're hunting before and seen them catch an impala on foot. And cheetah do climb trees, Shannon, but not very well, not quite like a leopard. Normally they'll use fallen down trees or branches to get a vantage point, and they also like defecating in high ground and scent marking in those places. Fortunately, there have been quite a few elephants and buffalo this morning around here, which is making the tracking even more difficult. I'm even considering making Andrew drive and I'll sit on the bonnet. So I'm hoping this big junction here is where we'll find some tracks. Hyena tracks. And there we go. Cheetah tracks have come out here. Still heading towards the Buffalo's Hook waterhole. It is very bad light, but I'll try to show you quickly. And it's heading towards our northern boundary, so we're not going to waste too much time showing you a track. We can rather show you an animal. There. So it looks very much like a hyena with the claws in the front, but at the back it's got the 3 lobes of a cat. This cheetah have semi-retractable claws, and it's one of the only cats that can't fully retract its claws. So when they walk, the claws do show. Just gonna update the other guys. Nkonzo of that Wanuna Shikankanka still heading north from Gwaripan Junction towards Buffalo's Hook Dam. I'm gonna go check the dam. So the first time I saw cheetah on Djuma, I was with Brian, and we had their tracks and we were tracking them, and we looked up and we saw these 2 male cheetah actually very close to Buffalo's Hook where we're going now, and we had a really spectacular sighting, and something quite interesting happened there. They were chased by a leopard, and Gilly, who's from Milwaukee, says, "Please remind me, Brent, which male leopard chased those cheetah?" And I know it was a deer leopard to a lot of you. It was Quarantine, young male leopard who chased those 2 male cheetah. So at the moment, I'm not actually going to stop and look for tracks. I can come back, I can do that slowly in case they have veered, but I don't think so. I think they're going to go straight towards Buffalo's Hook, and it is close to our boundary, so we want to make sure if they are still on our property that we can get there beforehand. So it's quite possible, and it's lucky that cheetah has now gone through the block here or here, avoiding this road. It would be amazing if we get there and he's having a drink. Sometimes you've got to just take that chance. Because if we stayed on the tracks individually, it would probably take us an hour to cover distance if we look for each individual track. Sometimes you've got to try to think like an animal and try and second guess them. Andrew, fingers crossed. Come on, Shikankanka. That is the Shangaan name for a cheetah. Shikankanka. Shikanka. Oh, we don't have a Shikankanka, but we have a Nuntlwa, Mvubu. Morning, Gerald.
You want me to go south from Triple M and there's a new cross back west into Arethusa? If you don't mind, Craig, that's probably a good idea. Yeah, I'll make my way there.
We've got a male giraffe at the waterhole. What have you spotted, giraffe? Giraffe are very good at spotting things, so just want to go around and have a look where we can't see where he was looking earlier, just in case. So good to just sit and listen. And we've got, before we go back to that giraffe, Andrew, there's a bird we don't see as often right at the back, up next to the Ziziphus, about to disappear, up to behind the saddleballs, to the right, and up. Oh, he's gone behind the bush. We'll see if we can find him now. There's a woolly neck stalk there as well. And then we've got some saddle-billed stalks to the left. And looks like only 2 hippos today. What are you looking at, Gerald? Just listening carefully. And we've chatted a lot about the hyoidian apparatus, which is the voice box in big cats. And cheetah do not have the same apparatus as lions and leopards. And there's 2 amakops now, and Mike was wondering what type of noise or contact calls do adult cheetah make, and Country Girl Ash said, don't they have a very chirping noise? That is correct, and that is their contact call. It almost sounds like a bird chirping, very high pitched, and I'm afraid I cannot imitate it. And funny story, once quite many years ago, one of the amazing Shangaan trackers I worked with and myself were watching a female cheetah with 5 cubs in the Sabi Sands, and a guide from another lodge, we're on the boundary of our property, drove up there, and the female cheetah was making those high-pitched bird chirp contact calls to her cubs, and the other guide said to his tracker, "I'm fit. What in Yoni is that?" He said, "What bird's making that noise?" And Simon and I nearly burst into laughter, and we looked at the poor tracker sitting on that other vehicle, and he just sort of shook his head. He's like, "But why they give me this guide like this?" But yeah, so that was quite a funny story. That poor man did not live it down for many a year. I think he had only just qualified as a full guide. Maybe one of his first cheetah sightings. Gerald, as much as we enjoy spending time with you, we've got cats to look for. So that cheetah's either made it here before us. I'm not going to get out and walk because we might disturb poor Gerald. We're going to go check around onto the cut line again, onto our northern boundary, and see if we find anything that side. While we do, we're going to go see how Commander Bond's tracking expedition is going.
Hello everyone. No luck with the leopards as yet, I'm afraid. We've just stopped here. There seems to be a really beautiful little bird party going on here. You can hear a white-browed scrub robin calling. There are some drongos. There's a green pigeon. There's a green pigeon there. Beautiful bird. What else have we got in there? Some black flycatchers. That's really nice. And that drongo is imitating a rattling stickler. It's going choo choo choo, blip, blip, blip. That's what a rattling stickler does. Southern black tit. In fact, there isn't a robin. Sorry, I mean there was. So, we have been unsuccessful so far. It looks like the track's headed in this direction off the road. So we'll keep driving the block around here and see if nothing pops out. We also had some impala alarm calling, but that was from way south. And there were some tracks of a male lion and a female lion heading in that direction. Perhaps it was them, but they've definitely gone off the reserve that we're on, so we can't follow up on the lions. So we'll continue with fortitude, our tracking of these two mating leopards, but where they are is anyone's guess at this stage. Tingana, like I say, was definitely marking his territory yesterday evening. And what that means is that, I mean, a male leopard marking his territory can go an enormous distance, even with the attentions of a female leopard, trying desperately to encourage him to mate. And now Tingana, of course, has been mating with Kwatile, he's been mating with Karula, he's been mating with now Shadow twice. This is his second bout of mating with her, and seemingly without success. No cubs yet. And as Angie makes the point, thank you for that, Angie, it would be rather nice to have some cubs around, well, firstly just to look at them, and secondly so that Tingana can take a load off, have a bit of a rest, and stop being harassed by these ladies. I say it's not a problem, I think that, not an unpleasant problem he has. But it is interesting that in the last 6 times he's mated, seemingly not. He hasn't seemingly, on 6 mating occasions, seemingly not managed to produce offspring. Which is
make up their mind. What was that?
I think it's different when
I don't know what's going no. Sorry everybody, a couple of listening to the radio. A couple of strange messages coming through on the radio. I think I'm still with you. I hope I'm still with you. And we had a question from D, but I'm afraid I missed the question through some odd radio traffic coming through. But D, we will get back to you with your question now.
Were they on a bumper or just give them on TV?
Sorry, I'm just getting an update on the radio there. Right, never mind for now. D, as far as I understand your question, and I'm not sure I'm getting it right, do the females... Brian, flooded? Did you get that? No. Ah, there we go, flag. Do the females flag their estrus? They do. They flag it in, but not visually. They flag it with pheromones and with olfactory signs. So they will leave signs in their urine, and that will definitely sort of encourage the males. But they also go and find the males, and you don't find them behaving in that kind of tail flicking, bottom in the face way with at any other time other than when they're ready to mate. And they're one of the, we had a very interesting discussion the other day about females that show estrus, that demonstrate estrus, because it's by no means universal in mammals, and they reckon that one of the ways to stop infanticide, which is of course the killing of youngsters by unrelated males, is to hide estrus and to mate with multiple males so that nobody really knows who the father is. And what that does is reduce infanticide. Now in leopards that's not so much the case, but we do think that perhaps the fact that they mate with more than one male either indicates that there could be more than one parent, more than one father in a litter of cubs. Otherwise, ooh, that's a bit of a bump. Otherwise, that the fact that they mate with more than one male just tricks the neighboring males into believing that they produce cubs, and because they believe that they perhaps produce cubs, they're not necessarily likely to kill new cubs. And of course the major cause of death for young leopards is other male leopards, not related. Kind compliment coming in from Tammy. Thank you, Tammy, in Iowa. You say that you want to know, well, first of all, you say that I have a nice accent. That's very kind of you. There were many who would disagree, but I'm very, very pleased that you enjoy it. Thank you very much. And you want to know how many languages I can speak and how many do I need on game drive. The only language you really need on game drive is English, because everybody speaks pretty good English around here. But the language that I use with some of the rangers here, some of the Shangaan rangers, is called Shangaan, and it's a language that I learned through working out here, very similar to another language called Zulu, which I can speak but badly, but I can get by with it. And that's another indigenous language, very similarly structured to Shangaan. Thank you very much, Tammy, very kind of you. I'm just going to quickly talk with Brent. Go ahead, Brent.
James, check the
I think I'm copied that you would like to come and give me a hand in this area. That would be very nice if you want to come down here. We did have one male, one female lion on Philemon's line. There seems to be a big block to the south, so I can follow up from there. And I'm currently checking some Impala Road towards Impala Plains. Craig's checking Triple M, and I think they could be in the block between Impala Road and a big block between Impala Road, Triple M, and Rebecca's. So Brent is, first of all, mating leopards are highly exciting to look at, very interesting, and secondly, they should be relatively easy to find. I mean, they make a noise, they don't necessarily move far, but I think perhaps Tingana's attitude of wanting to mark his territory again, possibly as a result of a bit of moisture that we've had, a little bit of rain, and that would of course wash away his scent. Perhaps he's quite keen to just reassert his authority in the area. She'll just go along for the ride, I think. If you're perhaps a new viewer, or just a viewer who's forgotten, I often forget these things. Tingana is a 9-year-old male leopard. Sharon, I think you were asking that. I often have to just check up again to see how old they are. He's 9 and Shadow is also 9. So they're both in the kind of the prime of their lives, if you like. Once he gets to about 11 or 12, he'll probably start to lose condition a little bit, and as long as he's not challenged too much, he'll maintain his territory hopefully till he's about 13, but after that things will get a little rough for him, and as soon as a male leopard starts to lose condition, a young usurper will come in and take over the territory. This seems to be the kind of way it goes, and I mean the only way that you maintain dominance out here is to be big. That's pretty much it. Your brain power doesn't play a huge role, and as soon as you lose your physical prowess, you first of all can't defend your territory, and secondly you can't hunt, and leopards are not great at scavenging. So the aerial there. So once you get to about 13, things become a little rough. I was a guide for many years. Well, actually not for many years. I guided full-time for about 2.5 years. And that, by being a guide, that means you take people on safari. And Hamish in Vancouver, while we're driving along looking for these recalcitrant hiding leopards, you want to know who I would most like to take on safari. That is a fascinating question. It's a bit like the question that I ask of people sometimes. If you could choose 3 people to take to lunch, 3 people in the world, who would they be? And then you get into the different permutations of dead or alive. Can they be dead, or do they have to be extant now? People I'd like to take on safari, Hamish. Well, you would be one of them, because you've asked the question. Who else would I take on safari, Brian? Who would you like to take on safari?
That's a big tip. James, I didn't pick anything up.
I mean, I think I would probably like to take someone like Desmond Tutu on safari. I think he'd probably be astonishingly informative and really amusing. Possibly a chap like Stephen Fry. I'm not sure if you know Stephen Fry. Take him on game drive, he'd be quite fun. Maybe a chap like Jared Diamond, brilliant American physiologist, linguist, and ecologist, humanist. I think he would have some fascinating insights into the different ecology of this particular area. So that'll be my group of 4, Hamish. You, Stephen Fry, Bishop Tutu, and who was the other one that I said? And Jared Diamond. Maybe we'll toss in David Gilmour of Pink Floyd fame, just to sort of round it off and bring in the arts. Looks like a hyena track, not a leopard. Thanks for that, Craig.
James, where are you taking at the moment?
Craig, I am lurking around Rebecca's Road at the moment. I'm just trying to pick up any further tracks. I think the last track I had was the female going west into this block here.
Okay, copy. That's north of William's cut line.
Yeah, affirmative. That block between Triple M and Rebecca's Road.
Alright, copy.
So we're just going to very carefully drive along and check the road. Go again.
I missed that update.
Brent, sounds like, it looks like tracks of the female go west into the block between Rebecca's and Triple M. Sorry everybody, while you're tracking you do have to keep everyone posted so that nobody doubles up and does the wrong thing. But I think we're probably, you see, on a day like this, the weather is not great for animals, so they tend to go into the bushes and hide. So it's probably worthwhile us sticking around here and just trying to find further tracks of the mating leopards, rather than disappearing and going somewhere else and seeing what else we can find. So I think we'll hang around here, if you don't mind, for the next little while, and see what we can pick up.